Oh boy. I know I said it in a Soul Eater video already, but the highly anticipated second season or final case of The Great Pretender just came out, and The Great Pretender pre-DLC led the charge to be my anime of the year. And honestly, if Case 4 hadn't come out this year, there's a good chance it would be. But it did, and as the last and longest case, you'd expect it to be the magnum opus of the series. And in a lot of ways it is. The crime being taken down is easily the worst. The con is at its most bombastic. There's a healthy serving of backstory and character development. But does that mean it's good? Not necessarily. It can get pretty hype at times, sure, but the deeper I looked at the ending, it's at its best weak, and at its worst, problematic. In case you missed it at the beginning, this is a total deep dive into the ending with references to the other three cases, so at the very least, I ask you to watch the first case. It is a fun ride, and with plenty of great twists that keep you on the edge of your seat. And while the other two are not as thrilling, they're still a lot of fun to watch. Those are experiences I don't want to ruin for anyone, whereas with the final case, well, someone at Wit Studio already handled that part. Just on the offhand chance you disregarded me asking you to watch the first case, or you saw it when it first came out and need a refresher, Makoto Edamura is living the swindler's life in Japan when he ends up in LA helping out a foreigner, Laurent, in a con to sell fake drugs to a movie director mob boss. Things start to escalate way bigger than Edamura could have imagined, and as he comes to learn, Laurent's plan was actually much bigger than he ever let Makoto in on. Wanting to turn his life around, he returns to Japan to turn himself in as a scam artist and uses his cut of the job to repay what he had taken. But you see the amount of episodes this is, you know he's coming back. I'll spare you the details, but for the second job, he was spending his time as a free man working as a mechanic, only to be told there's a job opportunity working for a very familiar crew. Makoto again having no real agency in this one, as the mechanic he was working under was also on Laurent's payroll. The third job is his idea, at least to start, until he fumbles the execution. Along the way we meet a few other key players, Abby, Cynthia, Shion. The final people of note are Makoto's parents, his father being a lawyer whom Makoto looked up to dearly as a child, but was later caught to be trafficking children, and his mother, sometime after learning about her husband's crimes, was hospitalized, eventually passing away. Now that we're all caught up, Case 4. The Wizard of the Far East. We intro on Laurent telling his team it's going to be their biggest job yet, and Edamame telling him he wants out. Again. Going home to Japan, he manages to land a job at Scarlet Trading Company. There's a cool montage of Makoto as he goes around the world working, and he says to himself after, it feels like he's finally settled into something he loves. That same day, he's told he's going to be meeting the CEO, and upon arrival will be sent on a high-risk, high-reward job that, should he complete, would have a bonus worth almost a year's salary. He meets the CEO, Akemi Suzuku, goes on the job, and it's here in Thailand we learn the true nature of Scarlet, a cover-up corporation for human trafficking. I think with proper execution, this was the right call. Compared to the other crimes they've conned, this is easily the most abhorrent, and it's got a strong connection to his father, as this is what he was convicted for. And to their credit, they never do anything directly to play up or play off the weight of what's being done. It all just sort of happens, and it's uncomfortable, it's heartbreaking, and it should be. I don't want to be okay with watching this. I'm not saying they shouldn't cover topics like this, there just has to be a level of tact they handle it with. And again, on paper they do a wonderful job of doing that. I just have a nitpick that really bugs me, but I'll return to it later. For now, we'll return to Edamura, who, upon returning, remembers his trip home from Cynthia's island and realizes that, once again, he's been set up. Laurent and Team Confidence pulled a Now You See Me and left all these subtle clues to prime him to join Scarlet. And he's pissed. For good reason. He wanted out, and now he's being used as a pawn against his will. Yes, he could turn them down, but I think both Makoto and Laurent know there's now a moral obligation that binds him to their job. Shion and Cynthia then pose as a crew who say they have an Arab princess to sell them. We get to see Clark Ibrahim again. That's a nice cameo. Of him and his brother, Clark was definitely just along for the ride and for the love of flying while his brother did all the grubby work. So it's nice to see a returning character who's worth redeeming and we haven't been told to hate. Excuse me. They sell Abby for 1 billion yen, leaving a bit of an illusion to a Shanghai group. Makoto breaks her out, decides he wants to free the kids, but his attempt fails and she has to stay a little while longer. Fast forward a bit, and he's asked to translate for Akemi in a meeting with this Shanghai group. And in a twist of fate, meets their translator, who just so happens to be his father. Once again, Makoto has been set up, and he's pissed. He goes to confront his father, and hearing him explain how he hates life and he sees he's still wearing his wedding ring, he offers to take him along with him to free the rest of the kids. They get the kids in a bus. Oz, by the way, his dad's name is Oz, tells them that they're probably going to get tailed, they should get off the highway, and actually just leads them straight into Suzaku. We cut to Edamura, Abby, and Cynthia with weighted vests on a boat, except instead of being dumped straight in, Akemi has taken a real liking to Makoto and offers him redemption in the form of shooting his teammates. Or I guess, fellow con men, because they both start spouting off what Abby said at the very beginning, that they're not friends or teammates. Abby even said she would have shot him by now if she were in his shoes. And just before he gets any chance to think it through or even reconcile with them for getting caught, but Akemi isn't done giving Makoto second chances. No. She offers him the chance to fire back, to avenge his friends by shooting his own father. And he does it. This, for me, was the peak of the case. Team Confidence was never playing 1 or 2 steps ahead because they had the entire game planned out from the beginning. Within that, offshoot plans for any sort of variable that needed accounted for. So not only is it a real nice twist to finally see them lose, but Makoto has never been the one in control. He's always been the pawn of the situation. So maybe this is his chance to finally take the wheel of the situation. Not to mention, on a character development side, this absolutely breaks him, and I was there too. We witnessed 2 characters who we've come to love get unceremoniously shot, and then Makoto commits murder on his own father. He's so fucked up right now, the kindness of the CEO even gives him Stockholm Syndrome, and we see him willingly working for Suzaku. It's one of my favorite scenes in terms of the implications, when they recreate the auctioneer telling the kids to smile for the people who are about to buy them, but instead it's Makoto. It leaves a real weight in the stomach and really speaks to how deeply the day on the boat affected him. Not every twist has to be, oh, we had this all planned out, they were alive the whole time, and one of the bad guys was in on it. So, for as tough as it was to lose Abby and Cynthia, it was in its own way exciting and refreshing to see Team Confidence lose in such a... Oh, hold on, this guy's just calling. What's up, man?
Hey, man, just wanted to let you know that they had this all planned out. They were alive this whole time, and one of the bad guys was in on it.
I get it. Really, I do. Wouldn't it be the biggest twist of all if Makoto's dad, who we've seen as nothing but evil, was actually on Laurent's original team this whole time? And to that idea, I will concede, it would be / is the biggest twist of the show, sure. However, it can't be for nothing, and I think this sort of exemplifies all I feel went wrong with Case 4. First off, I don't think twists should be for the sake of twists. That's pretty lame, pretty cheap stuff. And second, it teased at such a much greater idea that lacked any sense of follow-through. For starters, every job leading up to this, Team Confidence has had a plan to get out of everything. So from the get-go, I had the biggest doubts as to why they would so willingly trust the man who trafficked children, got released from jail, and was like, you know what, let's run that shit back. And B, don't even pretend this isn't the 3rd time Abby and a friend has died only to be alive again. In the LA Connection, we had no expectations going into it, so when Abby and Laurent were shot, all hell broke loose, and it was exhilarating. Some truly edge of the seat excitement. Case 2 opened with Makoto and Abby blowing up in a plane, which maybe not a big twist, but at least it was an interesting hook. And if we're being honest, this time I believed it. Not because I was convinced it happened, just because I was convinced that there was no way in hell they would pull that same bit a third time, and that this felt more exciting. They show Makoto broken over what had just happened, that he's assimilated into Suzaku, so when I saw Daddy on the staircase, I felt stupid and I felt betrayed. Plus, in the first case, the reveal that Cynthia, who we thought was a corrupt cop, was in on it the whole time, coincided directly with seeing Laurent and Abby alive. So it was all one huge reveal at the end. Oz meets up with Makoto halfway through the episode he got shot in, who, by the way, I give zero shits about Oz at this point, so this reveal means nothing. And the characters I do want to see alive, I don't see for another 2.5 episodes. That lost its magic the instant we saw Oz. I already assumed they were alive too. Ugh, for better or worse, this is what they chose to do. And I'd be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge the idea that maybe this is supposed to suck. That we're supposed to feel how Makoto feels, sick of always getting used and betrayed. And to that idea, I say, kinda. Bear in mind, Oz knew the gun was fake, Makoto didn't. It was a very real moment when he pulled the trigger on his dad. This is the second time that he's wanted to return to living a normal life, but Laurent steered him right back into con work. Not even with the decency to tell him 100% of the plans. So much has happened to Makoto, especially in these past however long he's been working at Scarlet, that I wouldn't be surprised if this arc is leading to him finally getting pushed past his breaking point. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the verdict is in. Does Makoto Edamura finally snap? Everybody say it with me! Kinda. Let me just speed run you through the rest. Basically, Oz sits down with Makoto, gives him Laurent's backstory, the backstory to the original Team Confidence. The only face we don't recognize is Dorothy. They do some jobs, Laurent falls in love, and as they all look towards retiring, they do one last big job, which, as we learn, is almost beat for beat what they attempt with Suzaku, Dorothy being passed off as an Ethiopian princess. The biggest differences are it's with the Shanghai group, and that the actual Ethiopian princess ends up in the news, which unfortunately leads to Dorothy actually getting shot on the boat. Probably. Finally, Oz goes to jail to sort of cover up and take the hit for the rest of the team. The big job now has transformed. Makoto and Laurent both use their positions as translators to tell their respective leader that the other is asking for 100 billion yen. Both still with their own plans to kill each other, Liu from Shanghai with a poison ring, Akemi and Suzaku with a hidden chair sword. Meeting happens, both sides are confused as to why each brought money, when a huge team of fake police show up, led by Kudo. However, the position changes entirely when Makoto whips out the sword on Kudo and his own gang shows up, who, logically and naturally, guess who's leading this gang? You're wrong, it's Eddie. You guys remember Eddie? Case 1, the only one we've actually seen go to jail? This keeps getting better. This is the moment we see Makoto snap, and much like the boat scene, this for me was one of the peak moments. It's the culmination of Edamura constantly being Laurent's pawn, being put in situations that he never wanted to be in. Twice now he's wanted nothing more than to return to living a normal life, being very clear his intentions with Laurent, and both times he's gone against his will to steer his life back into his plans. Maybe it's being forced to go undercover at the child trafficking ring, or having to see his father, who he despises, or watching his friends die and shooting his own dad. Take your pick, really, but at some point along the way, Makoto was pushed past his limit. Now, when this was all happening, honestly, I was a bit confused. I thought it was a bit out of character, but I bring your attention back to Case 1, and two moments in particular. First is when Makoto gets caught with Kudo. After finding him again, he says something to the effect of, "Everybody's been calling me a swindler, so I might as well become one." Which, to me, makes this less of a new breakout moment and more of a return to the old Makoto, the one who's been trying to escape ever since taking down Eddie but always ends up corralled back into Laurent's schemes. The Makoto who says if life just wants to antagonize him, he'll play the antagonist. To follow, this is not the first time Makoto snapped. He used Cynthia Paula Dickens hostage to try and escape the situation. So wow, aren't we building to the biggest twist of all? That this whole time, what were just crazy twists to the audience were actually moments that were slowly grating on Makoto and who he was as a person? All building to this climactic moment where he berates his father and Laurent for all they've done to fuck him over. And we get this weird moral complex where, even framed as the bad guys in his life, calling him out for a mistake, he doesn't back down, so they end up killing him. Killing our main character because he's gone too far. Isn't that crazy? And then we're gonna undercut it all because it was all an act and Makoto's not actually dead. Wait, we're gonna undercut it all because it was all an act and Makoto's not actually dead?
What? What the fuck?
The Great Pretender, I think, is scared. I think Case 1 was a home run success and they're too scared to break that status quo. The Wizard of the Far East feels like everything was in service to the twist. They were shocking, sure, but everything else around it fell flat. And if that's all The Great Pretender was set up to be, it'd be great, sure. Because that's what made Case 1 so special. But you have to look at what's different between where we started and where we are now. The biggest difference being you've given us characters to get attached to, and you know this. Otherwise, we wouldn't have taken 2.5 episode break for backstory. Case 3, Snow of London, was, I'd say, the least extravagant in terms of villain and how the con was pulled off, but it works because it's not about the heist, but the personal stakes behind it. Makoto has to recover a painting for the family that he's been staying with, and James Coleman ruined Cynthia's life. Abby and Cynthia dying in Case 1 left me shocked because I couldn't believe they'd kill their main characters. But when Abby and Cynthia are shot, I'm not shocked because I can't believe it happened. I'm shocked because I don't want them to be dead. Case 4 wanted to be 100% character drama and also 100% crazy surprise for its grand finale. Instead, what we're left with is clashing ideas and wasted potential. Makoto lambasting his father with a sword to his chest is raw, emotional character drama. Except it's all undermined because, hey, cheers, we're all alive drinking on a yacht while our past villains play poker above us. To whoever came up with and greenlit their cameo, I say this with nothing but love. Fuck you. Let's even pretend that for just one reason or another, it had to be Eddie's gang. Cool. What are Sam and Coleman doing here? The same Coleman who ruined Cynthia's life? Now they're just partying on the same boat like it's nothing? We're cool with that? We're pals? I'm gonna make another dumb analogy here. Imagine the Great Pretender is a magician, and for their first act ever, they shuffle your card into the deck and magically, boom, it's back on top. Everybody loves it. So after some other performances, they make their way to Vegas, the biggest stage they've ever been on, and shuffle the deck, boom, your card's magically back on top. The deck could be 10 times bigger with glowing numbers and, I don't know, it blows up. I don't know anything about magicians. But at the end of the day, all that they did was the exact same trick again. The boat scene and Makoto's betrayal are the biggest offenders of not only wasted potential, but literally doing the exact same shit as before. Only one person has died in The Great Pretender, Dorothy, which is a bit weaker because I only care about her death through Laurent, not my own personal attachment. But wait, what's this? A post-credit scene? Oh, it's the ring Laurent got from Dorothy that he tossed back into the ocean? Fisk must have ate it. It's pretty cool, taking it somewhere. Oh my god, there she is! This section's kind of being slotted in here. It would have flowed better at the end, but it's not really the note I wanted to close on. There's a theme of forgiveness that's pretty prevalent in the closing act of The Great Pretender. That's why we see our past targets make a cameo. Makoto talks about how he has to forgive himself and maybe his father. The part's less clear. While Laurent doesn't say anything about Liu by name, he sends an email to Akemi's son so that they could all be rescued. It just doesn't feel right to let them all go unpunished. On top of all the money they've taken from them, Eddie went to jail, Clark cut ties with Sam so he's no longer has his air racing empire, and Coleman lost his collection of paintings and Farah, his benefactor, also left him. Which, thank you Great Pretender, is all a moot point now because they seem to be doing well enough to be gambling on the yacht. But within their respective stories, they maybe weren't punished by law specifically, but their crime was dismantled. So why does the group that sells children take nothing but a financial hit? Substantial, yes, but at least on Suzaku's end, she's willing to pay the price before there's ever a plan to get rid of Liu, so it's not enough to stop them if they so chose. However, what happens from here, I don't know. It's not really shown what happens to the island crew, just that the island is empty and presumably they're saved. But the implication that they could just go back to child trafficking doesn't sit great with me. Suzaku and Shanghai are framed in the beginning as villains because they're trafficking kids. But along the way, the motivation shifts to being a revenge plot for Dorothy. So yes, for as strong a motivation Laurent had to take revenge, he took the high road and, in a sense, forgave them. I can get behind that in respects to Dorothy. But the notion that they could easily return with nothing but monetary repercussions is, I think, problematic. Again, I don't want to paint the team behind The Great Pretender as inherently wrong here. They did a great job of handling the topic whenever it directly came up in the show. It's just such a sensitive topic that I think they need to think about the implications that we're left with, because that's all this really is, just implications. But a subject as heavy as human trafficking, I think I needed more clarity to the situation, because as it stands, it's left to a shaky, well, who's to say what happened conclusion. Let me know with a comment what you thought here. I'm really curious if you agree, think some of what I said is true, or if you think I'm totally off the mark here. In a conversation between Abby and Makoto about all he said in there, he says that he's serious. But as a certain con artist once told him, forgive yourself. And that's the bare minimum, I'd say. It's a nice callback to his talks with Abby in Case 2 and ties into that theme of forgiveness nicely, but man, so much buildup and an intense climax for a passing I need to forgive myself. I hope you see what I mean by wasted potential, because I'd say in a vacuum, looking at what they did in Case 4, it's okay. Crazy spectacle, little bit of backstory, not too much else. But the boat scene and Makoto's betrayal tease these ideas that things could be so much more. More than yet another superficial, we had this planned all along twist, but a twist that would have fundamentally changed what our story was about, letting them explore new ideas. Case 4 was supposed to be this big send-off that would blow all the previous cases out of the water, but what we're left with is a whole bunch of crazy twists in this name of having crazy twists, a lot of great ideas that never get the exploration they deserve, and this grand stage for a one-trick pony who really doesn't know how to let its characters die.